Today we're going to be walking through how to install a grass flap on an SWZT Scag walk-behind mower. To start with, we're going to remove the factory discharge chute. It takes a 1/2 inch wrench to do this. Set the factory chute out of the way. We'll go ahead and get the no drill mount for the Scag mower. We'll go ahead and pull that out of the packaging. Now we'll go ahead and set the no drill mount onto the factory tabs. Start our 5/16 by 1 bolts that are in the kit there. We'll go ahead and start those in on both sides. These bolts take a 1/2 inch wrench, a 1/2 inch socket, the easiest way to do it. Now we've got the no drill mount in place, and we're going to go ahead and put the grass flap on. First thing we have to do is take the spring mount and rotate it up out of the way, so when we set it on the mower it doesn't get in the way. We'll remove the 5/16 bolt out of that and then resecure it so the spring mount stays up. We'll set the whole thing then onto the no drill mount. Then there's two 3/8 carriage bolts 1 inch long that we'll use to secure the flap to the no drill mount. We're going to go ahead and run the nuts down on these, but we're not going to take them all the way tight just yet. Let's get them down and get them close. Okay, now what we want to do is go ahead and make sure that the grass flap itself is squared against the face of the discharge opening. Once we've done that, then we can go ahead and secure the nuts to the no drill mount. All right, the next thing we need to do then is we need to position the flap itself, the blocker plate portion, so that it is against the deck the way we want it. So we've got a couple of 1/4 inch bolts here that we'll remove the nuts on so we can shift into a different set of holes. So depending on the size of the mower deck, will determine which set of holes you end up locating these bolts in. In this case, we're going to use the set of holes that are farthest toward the rear of the flap itself. Go ahead and verify that it lines up the way that we want. And once we have it there, we'll go ahead and secure those bolts. Okay, the next thing we want to do then is go ahead and secure the spring mount so it's in as low a position as you can get it and still have a path for the cable to run on. Then we'll go ahead and connect the spring using a pair of channel locks that I found to be pretty easy. Pull it and hook it onto the spring bolt. And you want to make sure the flap is shifted toward the rear of the lawnmower as far as it will go. Now with that part done, we're going to move to installing the pedal itself. So the first thing we want to do is remove these existing bolts from the mower itself We're going to utilize those same set of bolts to put the mount for the pedal on. So I've got the nuts removed off that. Before we install this mount, we want to make sure we get the bolts for the pedal into it, because we won't be able to do it once the mount is put on the mower deck. So using the 5/16 carriage bolts provided, 5/16 by 1 inch, we'll go ahead and insert those from the inside of the angle toward the back. Then we'll slip the bolts that are connected to the mower. We'll pull those out and put them back in, and go ahead and run the nuts down and tighten those up. Once these are secured, then we're ready to go ahead and install the pedal. So the first thing we're going to do is slip the pedal onto the bolts there, and then put the lower nut on. And we're going to go ahead and run that in mostly all the way, leave it a little bit loose. This will hold the pedal in roughly the position we want it for installing the top nut. This nut is a little bit tricky to get to. It's just tight quarters in there. I found the easiest way is coming up from the bottom. Once you get it started, then I found that you can use a short 1/2 inch socket with a short extension. You can get that installed by taking it off the wrench and then hooking it back to the wrench, and go ahead and run this on in. We'll go ahead and secure the bottom bolt. Now we're ready to go ahead and run the cable. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the belt access cover. And we're going to go ahead and route our cable. When we do this, we want to slip it under the crossover bar for the deck lift assist, and then run it back between the battery box mount and then back along the side of the mower there. Now we're going to go ahead and connect the pedal end first. There's what it looks like routed back between the controls. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the rubber boot, then spin jam nut number 1 off, take jam nut number 2 and run it all the way onto the fitting, and then bring it off maybe a 1/2 turn. Slip the cable into the slot, the fitting into the hole, and then put jam nut number 1 back on. Then go ahead and put the rubber boot in place. Now we're ready to go ahead and connect the cable to the pedal itself using the clevis. We'll slip the clevis onto the end of the wire. We'll put the pin in for the clevis, having the head on the slotted side. And we'll go ahead and run our cotter pin in. I found the easiest way is to grab it with a pair of needle nose pliers, and then spread the cotter pin itself and both legs back. And then we're done on this end for now. Then we're going to go to the flap end. Same process. We're going to remove the rubber boot, take jam nut number 1 off the fitting. The one thing we're going to do different here, though, is we're not going to run the jam nut all the way on. We're going to bring jam nut number 2 out to about midway on the fitting. Slip the wire in, slip the fitting into the hole, return jam nut number 1 on. And what we want to do is have jam nut number 1 on just far enough that we can put the rubber boot back on, and that way it's exactly opposite of what we did on the pedal end. We want the jam nuts just barely onto the fitting. Now we're going to go ahead and connect the cable itself to the flap. So we'll insert the 1/4 inch bushing that was in the kit. We're going to go ahead and slip the clevis over the bushing and insert the pin, making sure the head of the pin is on the same side as the spring. This is important because if you put it the other way, there's a chance that as the pin passes the spring, it can bend and break the cotter pin, and then your clevis pin falls out and everything comes unhooked. So make sure the head is on the same side as the spring. Once again, we're going to split the cotter pin, bend both legs back. Now we've got this connected. Next thing we want to do is secure the cable up so that it doesn't get down into the belts, and also so that it stays away from the muffler so that it doesn't get too hot and melt the outside coating on your cable. I found a zip tie on the front crossover bar for the deck lift assist. Don't pull it tight, just loosely hang it there, and then we come up here to the corner and put the other zip tie on there. Again, don't pull it super tight. We'll go ahead and snip the ends off of our wire tie. Go ahead and put the cover plate back on the mower. Last thing we want to do on this flap end is go ahead and secure the jam nuts on the cable fitting. Those don't have to be super tight, just snugged up. So last thing we want to do is verify that the flap works the way that we expected. Push and release, opens and closes it. Here's a little sample of what it looks like in the field. In this case, we've got a walk behind without a Velcro on it. So there it is. Nice, easy install. Makes it easier to open and close the discharge chute while you're mowing.